Good morning, Truckee. And indeed, what a fine morning it is. A little bit of snow, or smoke. I guess we're praying for snow, something we're going to be doing a lot of. This morning, the sunrise, I don't know if you got a chance to see it. It was spectacular, albeit orange. Good time to take photos out there. But we are lucky to be here. I'll tell you, I wish the best for our friends up north with the fire. So I'm Jim Porter. I'm your host today. This program is presented by the Chamber. To my right is Lynn Saunders, the owner of the Chamber, the chief leader, boss, lady. I'm here in Andy Morris's chair, our town attorney, esteemed town attorney. It's a privilege to be sitting in his seat. So, we want to thank Tahoe Truckee Media for putting on our program this morning. I'm pretty sure we're going to be remote again next month. We've talked about next month we're going to go live, but I'm not seeing that on the horizon right away. By the way, we're having some technical difficulties here at the town. I guess that's been ongoing for a bit, news to me. So if you can't hear me and can't see me and the rest of us, you won't be able to let us know, but if you could, please do let us know that we're having difficulties. Because the stuff I'm saying is very important, very clever, very witty, and you really don't want to miss it. And you don't want to make me have to say it over again. So our program is rerun if you want to watch it. If it was so good you want to see it again, or you missed it, and you can get on the Channel 18 or on Truckee.com or TahoeTruckeeMedia.com. So all sorts of ways to catch up. So our sponsors, very happy to have our sponsors. We're always looking for more sponsors. If there's anybody out there that would like to support this program for the community. So here are our current sponsors, Tahoe. Do this. We'll take questions at the end of the program because the speakers are kind of related, and it just keeps us on task a little bit. And go on in the chat on Zoom or call the number on your screen, which I don't, there's a screen over there, yeah. 412-3719. Get my contacts dialed in here. So let's do it. This morning we're going to talk about I think is the most important issue facing our community, right up there with fires, and that's the housing crisis. Many of our essential workers are not able to live here in town. Businesses can't staff. I mean, everywhere you go, there's a sign, help wanted, and businesses are closing early, closing some days because they can't get people to, because there's a shortage of housing, and it's a serious issue. We have a panel of folks on the front line. These are the people that are really on top of solving this issue, working on this issue. It's not easy. There's no quick solution, as we know, how to get housing set aside for people that live here and work here, but these are some of the best people in the business working on it. And so let's get started. So our first speaker, and this comes to you via Zoom, is Tara Zuardo. Tara is the project director for the Mountain Housing Council, a project of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. Tara began work for the Mountain Housing Council in February. She has a law degree from Lewis and Clark Law School, so you know she's good just by virtue of having a law degree.
Doesn't work for everybody.
Doesn't work for everybody, I heard young Ted Owens say over there. Since 2014, Tara's been involved in a variety of housing-related legal issues, including foreclosure defense, homeowners association disputes, eviction moratoriums, landlord-tenant matters, all the things that I work on, and more. So please welcome Tara Zuardo, wherever you may be.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us again and for the wonderful introduction. Again, my name is Tara Zuardo, and I'm the project director for Mountain Housing Council, which is a project of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. I'm going to go ahead and try sharing my screen just to make sure you guys can see the slides. Looks like it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think the host needs to enable that in order to allow for screen sharing.
Carolina and Lynn are working on it.
Great. Okay, great. Well, just I'll give you guys a little bit of info on the Mountain Housing Council, just for those of you who aren't yet familiar with us. As you mentioned, we are a program of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, alongside a number of other really important programs. Okay, it looks like they've done it. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
We do?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, let's get into something. Got this here. Okay, wonderful. Okay, again, we're a project of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation alongside a number of wonderful programs. Our mission at TTCF is to connect people, provide them with opportunities, and just serve our community in any way that we can. Here's a number of our other programs that we offer there, including community scholarships, the Forest Futures Program, the Emergency Fund, and Mountain Housing Council, as I mentioned. All right, so MHC has engaged in a number of activities to serve our community, in addition to working towards housing solutions and providing gap financing for housing projects, and working with 29 other partners who are very heavily involved in coming up with important housing programs. We provide education and outreach to the community in order to enable them to become more involved in housing and to kind of take control of the housing crisis. One of those activities is our Lunch and Learn speaker surveys, and that is focused on any number of topics around housing that are important at the time. So, for example, one of our Lunch and Learn series that's coming up on August 16th has to do with the California budget and kind of housing opportunities in that. So that is free, and you can learn more about it by going to our website, which is listed right there, and just go ahead and registering. Here's a list of all of our partners. We have just a diverse group of wonderful, very committed partners. As you can see, they represent, local government, businesses, homeowners associations, nonprofits, utilities, just a number of folks that are committed to solving the housing crisis here in our region. So before there was even a Mountain Housing Council, we had a 2016 regional housing needs assessment done in order to find out kind of what types of housing was most desperately needed for what income levels. And included here, you can see some of the most eye-opening discoveries from that. With perhaps one of the most alarming being the percentage of homes in our region that are vacant most of the year due to being kind of secondary or vacation homes. Meanwhile, our local workforce, as was earlier mentioned, is desperate for housing, and the percentage of people that are commuting to work is also very alarming. So let's dive right into what the kind of current update of that regional needs assessment has indicated. As you can see, this is a breakdown of the regional and of Truckee's specific housing needs right now, given the limitations of what housing surveys can, of course, indicate. So as you can see, resident workers who are inadequately housed are a significant portion of this. So this means folks who are overburdened or paying more than 30% of their gross income on housing. Overcrowded, so that would mean more than one person per room, for example, or underhoused, where there might be an incomplete kitchen or a plumbing issues. You also have in-commuters who would rather live where they work but they can't find housing, seasonal workers, and homeless individuals. So taking into account kind of the overall limitations of surveys like these, the total needs assessed were, over 9,500 units, representing kind of household units. And that is a 1,000 increase in the assessment compared to 2016. Most of that increase, as I mentioned, is at the resident worker level. So this table shows things broken down kind of based on the area median income category, which is kind of how our housing departments, including our federal agencies, do things. So as you can see, our highest need is in two particular area median income categories, and that's the 30 to 60% area median income and the 80 to 120% area median income. So the column you want to pay the most attention to is the column on the right. And here's just a close-up of that current unmet need for resident workers at the regional level. As you can see, the highest concentration of need is for 1 and 2 bedroom units in our region, and that's across the board, whether you're looking at things regionally, in Truckee, in Placer, for any given group, such as senior citizens or veterans, seasonal workers. And as you can see, we have very low numbers for the need for 3 bedroom units. And that, is presumably because families who would need 3 bedroom units were likely priced out of the region some time ago. It's also important to take note in these categories on the left that more than half of our households fall between that 60 and 120% area median income. So that's a very important pattern to note. As you can see, this is a slide that specifically focuses on in-commuters. That same pattern applies here. We need 1 and 2 bedroom units, especially for the 30 to 60% area median income and the 80 to 120% area median income categories. So where things shift a little bit is for the seasonal workers. That's what shows up a close-up of current need for seasonal workers. Not for the types of units needed, you still need the 1 and 2 bedrooms namely, but for the AMI categories, the area median income. So the highest need here is the up to 30% AMI, followed by the 30 to 60% AMI. So the lowest income categories in a nutshell. Looking more closely at Truckee's needs in detail, you'll see that again, you have the highest need in those 2 AMI categories, even when you look very specifically at a close-up of Truckee. So there's that 30 to 60% and the 80 to 120%, with the highest need numbers, the totals at the bottom. And again, the need is for 1 and 2 bedrooms, namely. This is that same data for Truckee that's broken down by specific groups. So for example, senior citizens and veterans, both of which correlate for the highest need categories in the broader community, 30 to 60% and 80 to 120% of area median income groups. So what are we doing in light of this data and this crisis and everything that we know at the moment? Well, the Mountain Housing Council held emergency meetings where we gathered all of our partners and all of the brainstorming that they could put together on immediate solutions that were needed to bring about both short and long-term solutions. And we formed what we call our tiger teams to follow up on those ideas. We most recently reported out on kind of the outcomes since our emergency meetings in late June, at our quarterly meeting in late July, to provide updates and the broader community on where we're at with those. So this is just an example of kind of one of the important outcomes that came out of those meetings. And this is a list of kind of our top 10 of immediate changes to ordinances and new programs we felt we could make a huge difference for housing this summer and in the more immediate future, so the next 3 to 6 months. And we are making progress on this list in terms of our meetings with all of the counties and local jurisdictions in our region. To that effect, I also just want to tell everyone to spread the word about our upcoming community meetings on August 25th and September 30th, which will be virtual. And that's where this info on kind of where the data's at and where we are at with our solutions will be shared with the broader community. Most importantly, kind of updates on what our partners are doing in terms of the programs and housing solutions to address those needs. In particular, Truckee, the town of Truckee, as well as Placer County and Nevada County. So those really important that folks kind of register for and show up to these meetings so that we get as much of the community as we can. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for having us.
Great. Thank you, Tara, very much. Good program. Thank you, the Community Foundation, for spearheading this important effort. By the way, before I introduce our next speaker, at the end of our housing program, we're going to hear a COVID update from Ted Owens, who works for the hospital, and that should be interesting. So our next speaker, Shauna Doherty. So Shauna is the housing program manager for the town of Truckee. She's tasked with managing housing activities around town, including incentives for long-term and seasonal rentals, deed restriction programs, accessory dwelling units, and more. All really important stuff. Shauna has her BA from the University of California, Berkeley, apparently not being able to get into the University of California, Davis. And oh, sorry about that. Same old jokes. And is a certified master facilitator, and I've participated with Shauna. She is indeed a master. Prior to joining the town, Shauna was the project director for the Mountain Housing Council. Please welcome Shauna Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. It's wonderful to be here. Again, my name is Shauna Doherty, and I'm the housing program manager for the town of Truckee. This is a new position. I've been here for about a year and a half. Been in the community for a little bit longer than that. And the town has been addressing housing for over a decade, and about a year and a half ago, the town council decided to shift to a more proactive approach and set up this division, and I'm honored to be serving in this role. So exciting news. Yesterday, we made the news again. We were in the Washington Post, the town of Truckee, about our housing crisis. And I encourage all of you to check that out. There was a video. And what struck me was one of the quotes by our own council member, Dave Polivy, who said, really, to solve this housing issue, we have to be brave. And I thought that was an interesting word to be used by a town at this time, and it's true. We have to be brave. I think our town council and the staff at the town of Truckee are incredibly brave, and I love working with them because of that willingness to try new things. I would add to that we also need to work together, and I'm excited to be working in a town. I have colleagues all over the West who are trying to move housing forward, and they are just always envious of the partnerships and the collaboration and the funding that we have in our region. So thank you for having me here today. So what is the town of Truckee doing? housing. I'm not going to spotlight the issues because I think we're all acutely aware of the issues facing our town and our region. And I think the nation is looking at us to see what we're working on. So what are we doing? The town, it's really about what we're doing and what we're not doing. I get calls every day about, and you see posts all the time about what the town should be doing. To be clear, we really see ourselves as creating the conditions for private investment to come forward. I mean, we're not developers. In fact, we don't actually even own very much land. So really what we're trying to do is create incentives, funding, policies, programs, plans that, land use plans that create the conditions for the private investment to show up, and then we work together on that. A little bit on the private-public partnerships. That is working with local funders, it's working with the state, it's working with our community, it's working with the Community Foundation. Every single program and project that we work on has layers and layers of partnership. You take, for example, the Truckee Artist Lofts in downtown Truckee, which I think everybody's very aware of that because it's large and in the center of our town. And that's 76 units of income-restricted affordable housing, and that took partnership from the Martis Fund, the Truckee Community Foundation, the town of Truckee, and I'm sure on the spot I'm forgetting somebody, but just to even apply to the state to get the tax credit financing for that project took a lot of local partnership, and that's just an example of what sort of happens behind the scene to bring housing forward. On the funding side, that's an area that we focus on, so thank you to all who supported Measure K. It started this year in January. It's hoping that we'll garner about depending on it's a TOT tax, and so anywhere from $700,000 to $900,000 a year for 20 years of dedicated funding for housing, open space, and fire protection. So we're busy in the housing division coming up with creative ways on how to spend that money. Programs, we've got 2 programs underway right now. Colin with Landing Locals is going to talk about one of them. But really, our programs focus on creating grants or incentives to get people to show up, again, on that private investment. So we have an ADU program where we have a technical team in place. We have information. We're getting ready to roll out loans and grants to encourage people to build those backyard units and house our local workforce. We have another grant program that Colin's going to talk about where we pay homeowners who rent either their whole home or rooms to our local workforce. And then the big thing that we're working on right now is we're calling it a below market rate housing program. And that is a tool to allow the town to buy deed restrictions from either people trying to get into new homes or market rate developers who are creating apartments or ownership product. The town would have a tool where we would buy deed restrictions from those potential buyers or developers in order to lock down that affordability for an extended period of time. So if we can go to the next slide. It's the next slide? Okay, it's changing.
It's good.
Okay. So before you is the Mountain Housing Council's bridge that speaks about, so you have the orange zone, the teal zone, and the red zone. And that's how we as a region talk about sort of addressing our housing needs. And there's different funding and there's different housing types that show up in each of those colors. So what you see before you is the town has, by the end of this year, we're going to have about 605 units that are deed restricted, which means that they are locked down for the long term for lower income families. And those are the ones that you see around town, the Artist Lofts, Frischman Hollow, Coldstream Commons, which is over by the state park. And the town has, as you can see, there's 605, and generally those are the tax credit apartments. And we've done a fairly good job over the last several years of being able to attract nonprofit developers to come in and do products that serve that lower income level. We have 200 that are opening just by the end of this year, so we're pretty excited about that. And we're really starting to work with Measure K funding up into the more moderate income levels, and that's where our programs come into play. So that's our deed restriction program, our ADUs, and our workforce housing rental program, really aim to serve sort of in that moderate income level. If you go to the next slide. This is my last slide. It delays. So over the next 3 years, I just wanted to give a little bit of a timeline of sort of what are we working on. We sort of look at things as sort of an immediate, what's the immediate need right now? What's the midterm goals, and then what's some of our longer term goals. The market's changing so fast that we're really working in 3-year increments. So immediately, we're trying to unlock existing housing for workforce right away, right now, with our partnership with Landing Locals. More midterm, so in the next 6 months, we're trying to roll out the deed restriction purchase program, and then longer term, working with our partners up here to, with Emily at the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, to develop housing on public land. So lots in the works. If you go to Town of Truckee Housing, everything I talked about is on there, and I'm happy to talk to you about your ideas and what more we could be doing. So thanks for having me.
Shauna, thank you. And also thank you to the town council and staff who have put housing, seems to me, number one on the hit list, and we appreciate that. It's so important. So moving on, we have Emily Vitus, the Executive Director for the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Agency. This relatively new organization works with public agency partners to find housing for the employees of the member agencies in our community. Emily has an MBA from National University and earned her BA from Cal State University Chico. Great school. Please welcome Emily Vitus.
Thanks, Jim.
You bet.
Nice to be up here at the dais with some of my closest housing partners, and good to be here. Thanks for having us to talk about this crucial and somewhat concerning topic today. Thanks. Okay, so the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency was founded in 2020. In 2018, Mr. Ted Owens and a few of our founding member agencies were sitting at a Mountain Housing Council sharing a burrito, and or I think they might have had their own burritos. I don't know, but started talking about what can our public agencies do to further support their employees in housing. And about a year and a half later, they founded the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency with our founding members, Tahoe Truckee Unified School District, Tahoe Forest Health System, Truckee Donner Public Utility District, and the Truckee Tahoe Airport District. So we founded in early 2020. However, our efforts didn't kind of start until March of 2020, so perfect timing, beginning of a global pandemic. So things have shifted a bit. We've pivoted a few times over the last 16 months or so. We currently represent about 2,000 employees throughout the Truckee North Tahoe region, and these are crucial public service professionals. You know, they provide the services our community needs to operate and thrive: education, health, power, water, safety, and our 2,000 employees have extremely varied housing needs, which has made this work even more interesting. Additionally, 65% of our employees fall between that 120 to 200% area median income. So that rainbow that Shauna showed you, we're on kind of the right side of that rainbow. However, we also have that 35% of employees that fall below 120. So again, varied housing needs among our employees. So when we founded the agency, the board recognized, we need to clearly understand where our employees fall on the range of needs and wants. So we conducted a survey that provided some concerning results. I wanted to share those with you today, just so you have an idea of kind of where we are standing in July of 2020. We know that the issue has gotten a little more concerning over the last 16 months or so. But these results, really showed us that there is an increasingly urgent issue around housing, and our founding member agencies were right in developing this agency. This information also provides a benchmark of sorts for further analysis throughout the years as we continue with our work. Next slide. Fortunately, the survey wasn't all dire information. We were also provided with some wonderful recommendations from our consultant, some program recommendations, and information from our employees about what we could potentially consider and pursue on the housing front. So we took this information and developed a 5-year housing work plan to respond to the areas of greatest need and opportunity from that survey. Next slide. Thanks. So the housing work plan falls into kind of 3 main focus areas: the leasing and construction of workforce housing that really fits the area median income needs of our employees, the development of housing programs to achieve access and affordability tied to the mission of the agency, and the exploration of non-housing related programs that could help ease the burden of housing costs, which I'll talk a little bit more about here in a moment. Next slide. And under those 3 focus areas, we have kind of 5 buckets or 5 activities that we're focused on through this housing work plan, this 5-year plan. So we have our employee concierge or our housing concierge. It's really just a fancy way of stating that we are here for our employees in all things housing. So whether it's understanding what their area median income is and what they can afford, or if it's applying for a home at Hopkins Village, we are the go-to for our employees to understand how they can access the housing that they need in the community. Development, workforce housing development, looking at publicly owned land, our member agencies' land, in addition to public partners' land, to move forward with workforce housing development. Securing existing housing units, so looking at housing match programs, incentive programs, master leasing of units that are soon to come online, so kind of a variety of opportunities to access that existing or soon to be developed housing stock. Housing programs, so this is, kind of for all parties, whether you're a homeowner or a renter, providing education and funding to help offset housing costs and access housing as well. So looking at education programs around, understanding a mortgage and how to access or purchase your first home, all the way to down payment assistance for our employees to purchase homes in the region. And then finally, collaborative efforts. So the beauty of the Workforce Housing Agency is it allows our agencies to kind of commingle resources to affect positive change. So in this case, positive change for housing. It also allows them to look at other activities that impact our employees' ability to afford housing, whether it's childcare, transportation, et cetera, homeowners insurance. And we're looking at those areas as well. Additionally, we're working collaboratively with our regional housing partners to support our greater public and ensure cohesion and programming support, et cetera. Next slide. So we're about a year and a half into our operations, though we're a little less or a little more than a year into our housing-related offerings to our employees. And in that year, from July 2020 to now, we've helped nearly 100 employees on their housing journey, whether it's helping them to access affordable housing or actually getting them into a long-term lease. So of those close to 100 employees, we have helped 18 access long-term housing. One of those 18 was actually helping an employee purchase their first home, and that was thanks to the town of Truckee alerting us of a housing opportunity that one of our employees was able to take advantage of. Next slide. And one more really exciting activity that's come from our first year of work is we are actually expanding. We are expanding to welcome the County of Nevada, the County of Placer, and the town of Truckee, our 3 entitlement agencies. Their employees look exactly like our own. They provide crucial public services to our community, and we are really excited to welcome these agencies on September 1st as new member agencies of the Workforce Housing Agency. Next slide. And then finally, what are we working on now that will support that access and affordability I've been speaking to? We've shared what our 5-year plan is, but what do our current efforts look like? So we are currently pursuing workforce housing development, again, looking at some of our own land and working with some regional partners. We're hopeful that in the next few months we'll have some exciting updates to share with the community on that front. We are pursuing master leasing and some incentive programs to further access existing housing stock. So currently developing a program around long-term rentals, master leasing, and working with landing locals to revise the program that we've been able to implement over the last year. And then finally, housing programs, really right now specific to pathways to ownership, so down payment assistance, helping employees connect with lenders and understand what they can afford in the region. And if you're interested in supporting our public service employees, please reach out through our website, ttjpa.org, so it's truckeetahojpa.org. And again, really appreciate your allowing us to share what we're working on here today. Thanks.
And thank you, Emily, and for your presentation and for the good work you're doing. So, and Ted for getting that started. So our next speaker is Colin Frolick, the co-founder and CEO of Landing Locals.
I'll correct you.
Yeah, you correct me. Colin Frolick.
Tim better.
I'll just repeat it twice and then we'll change his name. He's the CEO of Landing Locals, which works to bridge the gap between underutilized properties, for example, houses, and locals who need seasonal and long-term housing. Colin's expertise comes from his years of experience working in Silicon Valley for Lyft. He was one of the 40 first employees, very cool, Airbnb and more. He has his BA in economics from Western Washington University. Colin, take away.
Thanks, Jim. And it's Frolic, but you were close.
You know what? I checked with every other person on how to pronounce their names and said, no, I got this one.
That's all right.
And I had the others and didn't have yours. I apologize.
No worries. Thanks for really happy to be here today to talk about Landing Locals, and we're a little behind on the schedule, so I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to talk today about a program that we have, which is really unique public-private partnership with the town of Truckee. So several of us have alluded to what this is. If we can go to my slide that talks about the first version of the program. You can just go to the next one. We are really sort of, I think, pioneering something that's really unique, that is unlocking something that the area really needs, which is, as Tara identified in 2016, the idea that underutilized housing stock could be converted to long-term rentals was an idea. It's been around for many, many years in this community, but what hasn't been is sort of the effort to do it. So Landing Locals came around in 2019 and got seed support and funding from the Community Foundation here in Truckee, Tahoe, and met Shauna actually in the first several weeks of identifying that this could be an interesting opportunity. When she joined the town, we started working on this program, and the idea was, what if we provided an incentive to homeowners geared at converting underutilized inventory, ADUs, and we really narrowly focused it on one outcome, which was unlocking 12-month rentals for moderate household or missing middle households, and the program, as we talked about, with the bravery of town council, directed funding for a pilot starting last November. So the first version of this program was really focused on long-term rentals and unlocking a one-time cash grant for homeowners. What we saw was that we got a lot of interest and ideas from homeowners outside of that beginning. So what about rooms? What about shorter-term rentals? And so we took this first learning. We housed 34 people into 20 units. And 27 local businesses were sort of, I would say, positively impacted by having their housing, our employees housed. So if we go to the next slide, in this term of bravery, we brought our results 6 months in April to town council, and Councilman Pallavi and staff said, we could go bigger on this. Let's do it. Like, what would it look like for us to expand this program? You've got a lot of ideas. You've heard from the community. So what would it take? And And it was political will, funding, and honestly, just us coming together and saying, how can we build a more robust program that can serve more people in our community? So that's just what we have done. A week ago, we voted on this. Town Council unanimously approved this. Really hard work from staff to bring together a very comprehensive and multi-year program. So we went from a pilot with one outcome to a program, and the next slide I'll talk about it. It serves potentially a lot more people, and it opens up a lot more housing. So the big changes in this program are that we're shifting the grant to be from House Unlocked, $3,000 cash grant to the homeowner, to number of employees that homeowner chooses to house. So the grant had been capped at $3,000 per homeowner. It's now capped at $10,000, so we're more than tripling the amount. We're also hearing loud and clear both the need on the homeowner side and the availability on the the need on the renter side and the availability on the homeowner side. We're adding in shorter term leases and rooms. So this is a big shift. This goes from us having 1 grant to 9 grants. And this goes from us, really hearing and listening to the community on what the need was. Our initial goal was 25 grants in the first year. We're upping this to up to 100 employees served in year 2 and beyond. So we're really excited about this. The slide that is a little bit of an eye chart, but if you're on Zoom, you can take a screenshot of this if you want to see where you might fall in. If you're a homeowner listening and now thinking, I could rent a room for 3 months, or I could rent my place seasonally. I'm not here in the summers. Take a look at this. This shows the kind of ascending order of dollar amount. So the shortest lease for the fewest number of employees is the lowest amount. So a 3-month rental for 1 regional employee is $1,000. Now, if you want to go as far as getting the $10,000 grant, you unlock your whole house or your short-term rental, or your neighbor's house, and really any house that we can put multiple people in, whether it's 3 local regional employees or 2 and their children, that can unlock up to a $10,000 grant. So again, kind of hearing loud and clear that the program could serve more people. We've geared a program we think will do just that. And so just, for sake of time here, I'm just flying through this. The very last slide is how you can get in touch with Landing Locals. Be happy to take some questions if there are as well. I know I have a couple minutes for questions before Ted's COVID update. So we can be reached at landinglocals.com/workforce grant. That's specific to this program. And there's a phone number dedicated for this program as well. It's 530-290-6949. Again, landinglocals.com/workforce grant, 530-290-6949. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Colin Frolick. And my apologies. And I think, Lynn, we're open for questions, and you can call in or go into the chat room. Uncle Ted's going to take the first question.
Colin, question. Is the grants a taxable event for the homeowner?
Yes, it is. So there are a few requirements, which we can get into more specifically with homeowners, but you are issued taxable income for the grant.
Okay, and you answered the question that came in on the short-term periods. It's a reduced grant, so you answered that question. Emily, what's the impact on your agencies with respect to recruiting and retention of employees? I think they're referring to your housing assessment.
Yep. If we could go back to that one, we don't need to go back to the slide, but there is a slide that kind of speaks to the number of employees that are having to live outside of the region, that are currently renting, that are having difficulties finding housing. That's a pretty large percent of our current employees, and that speaks to the employees that are potentially at risk of losing their homes or leaving their jobs. So one, there is the issue that is tied to us losing our employees. There's also an issue tied to not being able to bring employees in. So as Jim had mentioned, we can't get access to housing, which means our businesses aren't able to operate fully, and our public agencies are seeing that as well. So job offers that get turned down because the person that has accepted the offer can't find housing is happening more and more frequently, and that's from entry level all the way up to upper management. I know the town of Truckee has also had difficulties finding management level positions because those that they've offered the jobs to cannot find housing. So the impact is fairly significant on bringing employees in and also retaining employees when you can't keep them close to the places that they work.
Thank you. Shauna, you had mentioned that the town will have 605 deed-restricted units coming on, 200 of which will come online this year. What is the term for the deed restriction? Is it in perpetuity, or does it sunset?
Yeah, so great question. All the deed restrictions are unique to the specific project, but for a traditional affordable housing, they tend to be 55 years. But there's a portfolio of deed restricted properties that we have in that 605, and they're all slightly different.
Another question respective to the discussion on the artist lofts. When will they, two questions. When will they be open, and how do I get on the list?
They are open right now. So the east wing, there's two wings, and people have started moving in, I believe, 2 weeks ago, which is super exciting to see the moving trucks and people moving in. So, and then the west wing will open in the next month, but they're leasing up right now. The property manager lives on site. He has an office. His name is Ron. And you can go down there, and instead of doing everything online, you can go through him directly. And I can share that. If you go to the Truckee Artist Loft's website, his email is on there, and I would start working directly with Ron, the property manager at Truckee Artist Lofts.
Shauna, does the term artist, is that liberally construed to qualify?
So this is a very unique project. So there's a series of points to get in. It's 15 points, of which 9 is given for artists, which is a broad term. You can be, you don't need to be selling your art. You can be somebody that is using your artistic side for your work. You can be doing metal work, or you can be a hairdresser. It's a pretty broad. But the vision of that project is to create housing for an artist community. So they have facilities on site for art making.
Lynn?
This is for Colin. Do lending locals have a rent-controlled clause with the grants to homeowners? What is to keep the landlords to having sky-high rent while getting a $4,500 grant for long-term renters?
Yeah, that's a good question. We didn't put in specific rent caps, but there is a requirement that the renters can't make more than 150% of the area median income, which is roughly $97,000 per individual. So by nature of that, we actually sort of have built-in rent stabilization there. Every home is unique, so we don't have a specific saying a 3-bedroom has to rent at this dollar amount. But we're seeing our homes renting slightly below market rate mostly, and we even have homeowners. I had one just yesterday say I would want to split the grant with the renter and offer a rent reduction if I got the full $10,000 grant. So you can look on our website, landinglocals.com/listings, and see that particular home. I think that's a great manifestation that we want to see.
Shauna, how do people learn more about your programs, and how would they apply to any specific program?
So if you go to the Town of Truckee website and just in the search bar put in housing, we have a pretty robust housing page, and any of the housing projects that are under development, we have a tile on there that shows how to apply for those. So it's all on that website.
Great. Any more questions? Wow, that was really terrific. Thank you very much. It's a very timely topic, of course, and lots of good information. I'm sure the people watching this are very appreciative. They're probably online right now trying to contact you and get the application forms. Okay, and next we have Ted Owens from the Top Worth Health System is going to give us a hopefully not too dire update on the COVID situation.
Thank you, Jim. I'll start off with a press release that came out of Nevada County just yesterday. So these are county-wide statistics that I'll cover at first. As of last week, Nevada County had 443 new cases. I would tell you that just in monitoring these county numbers, they're probably in the area of 15 to 20 of that. We're not seeing what we're seeing in the western part of the county yet. That would be a 1,200% increase since July 1st of this summer. A very, very high increase. Sierra Nevada Hospital, or a sister hospital down in Grass Valley, their winter peak for hospitalizations was 15. They are now seeing numbers as high as 29. So they're exceeding the winter surge that we did see. 90% of those countywide are unvaccinated individuals. Right now, there are 25 hospitalizations, inpatients, in the whole of Nevada County. Tahoe Forest has bounced for the last 6 weeks between 1 and 3, typically, with a high a couple of days of 4. Prior to that, though, we were seeing zeros. So we are seeing a slight uptick here, but the majority is in western Nevada County. You still should get vaccinated. That's a very important component to this. This is something that we're seeing statewide. We're seeing it in Placer County, and we're seeing it in Nevada County. 90% of those that are testing positive are unvaccinated. You can get vaccinated at the Tahoe Forest Clinic at the Gateway Center, the old Gateway Center, Safeway, CVS. You can do walk-in, or you can go on to My Turn, the website, for walk-ins. I will tell you that the county vaccination rate as of last week was 58.3% of the population, of the eligible population. That is pretty far distant from the 70% target for herd immunity. I did see a figure a couple weeks ago, I think, in the eastern reaches of Placer and Nevada County, vaccination rates in the mid-60s in terms of percentage. Not 70, but higher than the western part of the counties. There are 2 new orders from the state of California that are important to be aware of. For healthcare workers at Tahoe Forest and all hospitals, all general acute care hospitals, employees are required now to be vaccinated. There are limited exemptions, religious and medical exemptions that do exist. And for those healthcare workers, if they have direct contact with patients, will be tested twice weekly. Those that work elsewhere in the organization be tested once weekly. Also, there is a state order for visitation. So starting tomorrow, visitors, those that would be accompanying a patient or going to visit an inpatient, will be required to show proof of vaccination or proof of a negative COVID test 72 hours prior to the visit. I would suggest don't give the poor folks at the door a hard time. It is a state order, and it applies to all general acute care hospitals in the state of California. So again, we are seeing a slight uptick. Tahoe Forest has re-engaged its COVID surge componentry, incident command, and preparation internally. Just in the event that we do have a surge, I would not rest on our laurels being in Eastern County and having a different experience in Western County. I don't think that would be wise, and I don't think it'd be realistic to assume that we're just going to be this wonderful, safe, unique place in the state of California or the county of Nevada. So we should be vigilant, and if you haven't gotten your vaccination, please do so. Be safe, wear masks when you're indoors, and socially distance. Thank you, Jim. That's all I got.
And thank you, Ted, and all the staff over there at Tahoe Forest Hospital. Now, I heard you say that 90% of the new people that are getting the virus are unvaccinated.
That's the countywide statistic.
That's the
true.
countywide statistic. It's probably the national statistic. I think there's a lesson there. So I can just say, please, for your own sake and for all the rest of us, please get vaccinated. Okay. Yeah, I feel better now. We now come to stump speeches. Lynn?
Thank you, Jim. I do have a couple. Keep Truckee Green is happy to announce that they'll be hosting a free bike valet at the 2 remaining Truckee Thursdays. The bike valet is free and an easy and secure way to park your bike without the hassle of driving and finding parking. The free bike valet will be available from 5 to 8:30 p.m. in the Pocket Park at the corner of Jaboom and Bridge Street across from Alibi Ale. Keep Truckee Green is still seeking volunteers, so head to keeptruckeegreen.org if you're interested in participating. I also want to let everybody know that the Truckee Chamber of Commerce, our annual awards event, is coming up September 24th. We're holding the event at a hangar at the airport. Most of it will be outside. The hangar will have 3 walls, and one of the walls will be wide open so that there'll be plenty of space to spread out and plenty of open, fresh air. Our theme this year is Come Together, and it'll be a casual outdoor event to bring business community back together, have fun, listen to some music, enjoy a toast, and each other's company. To learn more, purchase tickets, or sponsorship information, go to truckeeawards.com. And I encourage you to go to the Chamber's website, truckee.com. It's recently been redesigned with a fresh, clean look. It's the go-to website for all community information and events, and it has a link to the Truckee Jobs Collective, Truckee's most comprehensive job listing website, very important right now.
Lynn, do you have to pay for that advertising? That's your...
In kind.
In kind, yeah. You can pay me cash. I think that's it for our program. Ted, we want to make sure that you come back next month and hopefully the month after that, and then we don't have to see you again with positive reports. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yes, hopefully we'll be able to bring either our Chief Operating Officer, Judy Newland, or Harry Weiss, CEO, with me.
Great. Okay. And to our speakers, our presenters, thank you. Just a fantastic program, and thanks for all the work you and your staffs are doing. So, folks, we'll see you, in quotes, next month, second Tuesday, and be safe out there.